Hello, my lovely light workers. I hope you're having a beautiful evening. Welcome to Lit Up. I'm so excited to be here with you today. It's been a while since I did a live session, a live interview, but I'm so excited to be joining you here today. I'm George Lizos. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm an intuitive and the author of Be the Guru, a step-by-step guide to becoming your own spiritual teacher. And I work with empaths and light workers, helping you find, follow, and fulfill your life purpose. And I'm so excited to be bringing you episode 6 of my Lit Up Instagram show with Sonia and Sabrina Choquette-Tully. Now I'm going to bring the girls on and then we're going to do some housekeeping rules. I'm going to introduce them to you and we'll kick off with some questions. Okay, let me bring them on. I see they're already live. Can you hear me okay or can you not?
Hear you. We'll call you back.
Now I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes,
wait,
it's
now
back.
I can hear you. There we
Yes.
go.
Can you hear me okay? I know sometimes Instagram has a glitch, but thankfully this time it worked. I'm so excited to have you here. Now, before we start, let me do an introduction about you guys, and then we'll do some housekeeping rules. And I'm excited for the questions I have for you today and to interact with everybody around intuition. So, for everybody joining us right now, Sonia and Sabrina are the daughters of spiritual teachers Sonia Choquette and the Hay House authors of You Are Amazing. At 12 years old, they began their formal esoteric apprenticeship with their mother, and since then they went on to launch successful international coaching practices and work with countless clients all around the world. Today, they'll be teaching us their top intuition hacks, and therefore, how we can start using our intuitive abilities to live a more fulfilled, a more soulful, and more amazing life. Welcome, Sonia, and welcome, Sabrina. How are you?
We're so happy to be here. So happy. Thank you so much for having us on. We're so grateful.
It's such a pleasure. I'm so grateful to have you here, and because I've been seeing you in Hay House events while I work for Hay House for years. We've waved across rooms. We've chit-chatted a little bit, but we've never had a chance to really sit down and have a soulful conversation. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to be having this with you. Now, for everyone joining us right now, welcome to Lit Up. Lit Up is my Instagram live show, bringing you fun and soulful interviews with spiritual teachers with the aim of tuning you in and lighting you up. And here are the rules of the game. We don't want this to feel like a formal interview. We want this to feel like a group of people coming together and sharing information. So I want you to be part of this conversation. I want you to tap it out with hearts. If you hear something that you enjoy, that you resonate with, I want you to comment with your with anything that you have to share, with your questions. Remember that by taking micro action steps, such as these ones, like tapping and liking and commenting, you are telling the universe that you are an action taker. So you're training yourself to being an action taker. And when the time comes for you to take the big action steps that will help you fulfill your life purpose, you're gonna take them. So these are the rules of the game. Let's get this party started. Okay, so Sonia and Sabrina, the first question I have for you is something that I believe everybody wants to know. Now, you're the daughter of Sonia Choquette, one of the most popular spiritual teachers, and you grew up in a household where Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Caroline Myss, these household spiritual names, have been around. If I were to ask you to tell us the #1 collective message that you received by interacting with all these people outside of their normal working environment, like living normal lives, what would that collective advice be? What did you learn as a result of growing up with these big spiritual names?
Can I answer? Yeah. I feel like the first thing that I always love to say is that we grew up with a tremendous amount of normalcy. I think that the thing that was so beneficial about being so immersed in the personal lives of some of these teachers was that to us, they were just normal people with normal problems and normal issues, struggling, growing, developing. So I think that a lot of people come to the self-help world with the intention to improve upon what is already perfect about you, which is your spirit. And it's really about shifting the focus into becoming more aware and really becoming in touch with that intuitive voice from the beginning. And I think that having all of these very normal conversations about who they were as people let us know that it's not anywhere we're trying to get to. You know, it's just a part of the journey. So I think that takes a lot of the guru out there emphasis off and made it very much about connecting with your inner teacher in here from a very early age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Sabrina nailed it. You know, I feel we forget that we're all just normal people, just really trying our best. And I feel like especially with all of those there's just the normalcy of it all. You know, and also, of course, like, trust your intuition and follow your heart, but also just they're normal.
People are people. Even with people with a tremendous amount of spiritual training and teaching, that we were growing together. And so I think that was a tremendous benefit to us, because a lot of people said, well, how could you be so young and write a spiritual book? And I think that the truth is these messages of listening to your heart and your intuition, they are important that we really take action on and listen to it. The younger, the better. So I think that was a tremendous benefit, is to be immersed in that from a young age, to know that these tools work, to know that they're powerful, to know that you can change your life if you really listen to the voice of your heart and your spirit. So I think that all of that from a very young age just made us really aware, wow, this stuff actually works.
Yeah, and I think even in addition to that it was normal. You know, having grown up with a community that really also focused on working with their own heart space and their own intuition and their own spiritual growth. You know, I find that so many people grew up in communities where there wasn't a lot of like self-reflection or ability to connect inwards. And so to be surrounded by all these wonderful people who really helped to mirror that as role models was just made it so that it was just what you do.
Yeah, and you touched on something really important to me specifically, like the idea of idolizing spiritual teachers and having them be your guru. Like, for example, in my case, I found myself reaching a state in my spiritual path where I started idolizing and giving away the power, my power, to other spiritual teachers and other gurus by idolizing them for helping me reach a state in my spiritual path. And then I realized that by doing that, by giving my power away, I was sort of reversing the spiritual growth that I was going through.
Totally.
And I may have realized it later than you guys because you grew up with these people, but I only found the courage to, found the mirror to help me realize this about myself when I started working with Hay House. And I started interacting with different spiritual teachers and realizing that there were people just like everybody else, and normalizing the whole thing. So I think you'd be the perfect people to give us some advice, to give some advice to people who have struggled, who tend to idolize spiritual teachers and give their power away. How can we start finding all the wisdom, all the love, all the happiness, all the support we need within us, and stop seeing them and needing them from other people? It may be spiritual teachers, it may be celebrities, it may be other things in our lives in general, people or stuff, or in general, just projecting our happiness and our support to other people and seeing ourselves as flawed and as victims of life. How can we stop idolizing people and start finding all that we need within us?
So I would say that the first thing is, a lot of times when it comes to either spiritual teachers or celebrities, we imagine that they have somehow arrived. Yeah. That they have gotten to a place that we need to somehow get to. Yeah. And especially interestingly enough, now it's with social media and all of this, or like you see a teacher on a stage, or maybe you see a celebrity on a movie or whatever, you see this very teeny tiny part of their lives. And maybe somewhere in their lives that they really excel. And so we can project that they somehow have everything all together. And because we don't get to see them as whole people, it disconnects us and disempowers us from really being able to connect with ourselves. You know, and I also find that not only that we really, you know, especially in our culture, we always feel like we have to do more. I have to work harder. I have to do more spiritual stuff. I have to be more connected, more. And that sense of being more really makes us feel like where we're at and who we are isn't enough. And, you know, especially, I mean, the one thing that I think Sabrina and I have really felt so blessed with is having our mom is that she's so inside out of like, I don't have it all together. And I find even in both of with Sabrina and I and our clients and how we coach and teach is that we really like to mirror it from a place of we don't have it all together.
Right. I think that it's getting out of some very old, very deep, esoteric, spiritual, patriarchal models. You know, I think that there have been a lot of models of upward down where people sort of look at the church or look at the, you know, the priest or the pope or whatever. They put some spiritual teacher above them. And that's been our model for really, truly thousands of years. And I think that we're coming out of an age where it's really time for us to start to wake up to that the divine teacher within us is really our own intuition, that you possess within your own heart and soul an intuitive gift that is your inner teacher, it is your guru, it is your light inside your heart. And so when we can start to flip the model on its head and stop looking outside of ourselves for the answers, but really start to think, okay, I've got this big question or I've got this big unknown that I'm on this journey right now. How can I tune more into myself? But I think Sonia touched on that so beautifully too, where I think that it's a model of thinking or a system where we're not used to having that much personal power. We're not used to thinking of ourselves in that way, that I can do something, I can change, I have the wisdom within myself. So for a lot of people, it's a journey to get there. I would say that for my sister and I, that was probably one of the greatest gifts our mom could have given us, was that from the earliest of ages, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whenever we would have a question, she would have us ask the question to ourselves first. So we would, instead of just to automatically go to the teacher or go to our mom, that we would really have to pause and say, can I look within myself for the answer to this first? If it was still like no, then we could go outside, but there was a pause and a check-in moment. So I think that was fundamental in building that sense of connection.
Yeah, and I love that Sabrina says that. And this is just even, you know, we're talking about intuition hacks, a great one that we use all the time. You know, so often we can say, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what my intuition says. I don't know what to do, but we haven't given ourselves just like one moment to just check in. And if we can even just allow ourselves a little bit of space underneath the fear of not knowing, then a lot of times we can get really clear guidance. Just holding that moment for just one moment, being like, do I really not know? And it's like, oh, I do know.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that the idea of idolizing other spiritual teachers and anybody in our lives comes, as Sabrina says, from that patriarchal structure. This idea that wisdom is out there, outside of us, above us. There are people who hold the answers, and we just have to beg them for answers and try to find them outside of ourselves. So you bring in something that's very close to my heart, the idea that this whole patriarchal world has created a system where we're giving our power away. But I'm so grateful to find out like there are teachers like you and like so many teachers at Hay House specifically that are bringing in this idea of balance, this goddess energy, this spiritual movement that's shifting everything around and allowing us to find all the answers we need within us. Now, we touched on intuition a little bit, and I want to go into more depth because you're giving us all your intuition hacks today. Now, both of us, all three of us are millennials, and we live in a crazy world. We live in a world where it's easier to skip our meditation practice in the morning and reach for our iPhone and go through and spend like hours on Instagram scrolling through photos and tapping through stories. Now, how do we quiet the noise? How do we quiet all the distractions we have in this millennial modern world and prioritize our spiritual practice? And most importantly, how do we shut down the noise and listen to our intuition?
I would say that, for me, it really boils down to discipline. That I think that as millennials, that's something that we kind of have a difficult relationship with sometimes, is like, we don't want to be controlled. Like, don't put me in a box. Don't tell me what to do. Self that I'm imposing on myself. So for me, it's developing a very sort of a softer approach, but disciplined approach to my spiritual practice that I really recognize. For me, I just notice when I wake up in the morning, I get on Instagram and I do the scroll, and then I have my coffee and I sort of just avoid my meditation pillow, like I don't see her. You know, the whole day, I really pay the consequences of resisting what's good for me. And that within myself, I can sort of get to this place now where even if I'm making a decision not to meditate, I'm at least owning that that was my choice. I'm sort of not pretending that I didn't make a decision, you know, because I know for me that when I wake up and I do my meditation, my mantras, my yoga in the morning for 15, 20 minutes, the same amount of time that can disappear like that on social media, that my whole day is set with a different tone or vibration. Maybe the day is still a struggle or difficult, but I have a different sense of possession within my own being. So it's about, for me, finding that happy, peaceful, disciplined approach, because it really boils down to sometimes just, Sabrina, go put your butt on the meditation pillow. You know what I mean? Just really show up to these things that you know are good for you.
Yeah, and I love what Sabrina's saying on so many different places. First of all, just starting to show up. You know, how are we showing up for ourselves? How are we showing up for the things that we want? How are we showing up to our own spiritual practice? You know, when we, and also in terms of social media and finding practice, for me, one of the things that I really check in with is, how does it make me feel? And and it's almost like it reinforces the goodness. It's like when I'm doing my meditation or when I'm taking that 15 minutes to stretch, when I slow down and start to connect with my feeling body, I can feel the difference. And it's like when you drink water versus not drinking water. It's like being hydrated versus being dehydrated. I'm like, oh wow, like water is awesome. I feel so much hydrated.
So really being in the moment.
Really getting quiet. You know, I also find that this is another conversation that Sabrina and I talk about a lot, is that we haven't really been taught to be okay to have feelings and to be uncomfortable. And a lot of times we reach for our phones or for, you know, distractions in order to sort of soothe ourselves. So in terms of even getting to find that place, it's like starting to find a little bit more space to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which sometimes that's what spiritual growth is.
I feel there's so much attention in the spiritual community about the spiritual practice being really spiritual. We are inundated with spiritual tools and mantras and so many complicated spiritual practices, but it's really all about what? What is a spiritual practice really about? What would you say?
I mean,
for me, it's the commitment to a spiritual path.
Yes.
It's a commitment to a path. It's a commitment to really remember what's important in the moment. And I think that a lot of the times, for me, Sonia and I talk about what we call the endless self-help, low self-esteem, really like using these spiritual tools because we feel like we're not good enough or we're not okay as we are. So we got to keep doing, we got to keep. And at some point, it's that pause, stop, and recognize that who you are already is beautiful and perfect, just as you are. And that for me, it's just that reawakening, that's really what it's all about for me, is that moment of just pause, notice, and reawaken that already in this moment, right now, I'm connected to my heart space. I'm connected to the people that I love. It's actually getting out of the always doing mind. And even in the spiritual community, we can get in that always doing, always improving, always, you know, that I think can sometimes rob us of the truth of that we're just really beautiful and incredible right now.
Yeah, and I think for me too, in terms of, you know, we're so taught we our spiritual teachers, we can learn all these tools, all these mantras, all these different things, but again, of really starting to check back in and see, how does that resonate for me? You know, some people, it's like a sitting meditation is really good and that works for them, but some people it's like, oh, they need to maybe do a walking meditation or a running meditation, or maybe this mantra doesn't work. And I sometimes find with our clients that they'll get all these tools from all these spiritual teachers, and then they'll try and force them into their lives. They don't actually resonate here. And so it's, again, you know, and this is what I love about your work and what you do, is it's about taking back that power and that ownership and say, how does this make me
feel?
Right. How does this resonate for me? Does this open my heart? Or is this something that, again, from that patriarchal system where I feel like I need to do?
I should like this.
Yeah, shoulding on myself.
I should all over
That's
myself.
What we call it. We should. I should all over myself.
And sometimes
all over yourself.
But sometimes it's as easier just singing or dancing or just doing the simplest thing, as long as we hold it against to the way we feel while we're doing that, and being really conscious and mindful of how that makes us feel. How does that part of our spiritual practice make us feel, and does it light us up, or does it bug us down, in other words?
Yeah. And, you know, I also find that something that is missing so much from spirituality, and this is something Sabrina and I talk about, is like play and joy, and how that connects us immediately to the moment, to our spirit, to our intuition, to the present, to the universe.
We are very psychic, very intuitive, and very silly, because it keeps us in the moment. Our mom, it's like, if you spend time with our mom and our grandmother, who is the original, we call her the OG. She's the original gangster intuitive teacher. She is hilarious. And she'll say, the situation is critical but never serious. And this woman has been through some really intense, you know, journeys. And she'll say, it is humor. And that is spirit, that God speaks laughter. So growing up in our house, we were intuitive, and we were a little bit crazy Romanian, but we were also really funny, and we sing and we dance and we play and we're joyful, that we can't forget that, yes, it's disciplined spiritual path, but it's also disciplined to be remembering that it's important to play. Like, you should be disciplined about your play practice as well. We shouldn't get so serious that we forget to play.
Squeeze our spirit right out of our body.
Right.
Yeah, in the same sense that children are naturally more intuitive, because they're in that sense of in the moment playfulness that we have as well, but sadly we've abandoned throughout our lives. So it's just a matter of reminding ourselves that that inner child that used to be playful and intuitive is still there within us, and it's just a matter of just allowing it to play. Okay, so with regards to ego and intuition, because that's usually the most popular question I get from people, how do I tell the difference between ego and intuition? Is that voice coming from my ego, from a place of fear, or is it coming from my soul? Is it coming from my spirit guides? What are some guidelines that people can use to ascertain between the two?
Go ahead.
I would say that Sonia often describes it to me as like ego contracts and spirit expands.
Yes.
So we talk about this a lot, because there are times where we are too going, is this my intuition? Is this my ego? Is this my brain? But the experience of ego will contract your energetic field. It will make you feel tight. It will make you feel like you have no choices. It will make you feel anxious. It will make you feel withdrawn or constrained. It's a physical sort of response. So yes, it's actually getting in touch with the physical body, because when we're really locked in an ego state of mind, we don't feel good. Yeah. There's actually just the physical body feels anxious, fearful, contracted. Spirit and intuition, on the other hand, when we're really connected to our intuition, even if what we're, let's say, sometimes my intuition will tell me something I don't want to hear, right? Like my ego will be like, I wasn't ready for that level of truth intuition. Even so, when I connect to it, there's a sense of, there's a sense of, okay, there's a relaxing, there's a state of, I don't feel contracted. So for me, it's really important to notice how spirit makes me feel versus how ego makes me feel.
And Sabrina also, one of the things that she says that I love is she'll say that, you know, your intellect, your ego is really chatty. It talks a lot. So if you're trying to get guidance on something and it is, you know, just that chatty, like a rotisserie chicken on a spit, which I love the image that she always gives me. I love it so much.
It goes around and around and around.
That is your ego. That is your intellect. And, you know, when it's your spirit, when it's the voice of your intuition, usually it's very simple. It's not a lot of words. And it also feels really reassuring. It's like, it's like, yes. And it resonates as true, not right.
So the thing that we always used in our home growing up to differentiate was we would say it out loud, because intuition is actually we have in our inner ear, our cochlear, we hear vibration. And if you say out loud, so like today I was talking to my fiance, we were having a conversation, and he was struggling with making a decision between two things. Do I go with this business or do I go with that business? He was deciding two businesses to go with. So I said, well, say it out loud. Say it out loud to yourself. If I'm going to choose business number A versus I'm going to choose business number B. Like, he actually took it out of the headspace and said it out loud. And he said, when he said it out loud, he knew business B was the one that he needed to go with. He could hear it when he said it out loud. But sometimes I think that we get really locked in our own ego headspace, even with our intuition. And so it's important to start to say it out loud to ourselves. I will often go on walks and talk my intuition out of my mouth and listen to myself as I'm saying it, because I can actually hear what's intuition versus what's just a lot of blah, 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 ego opinion.
Wow, that's so powerful. So it's like your body's having a reaction basically to what you're saying and either agreeing with it or not. It's like muscle testing, while your body has an opinion and knows. So would you say that intuition is embodied then?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, intuition lives in your body. You know, it's connected to your heart and your gut. It's like your gut, your heart, then your throat is the chimney. Then your ears pick up on the vibrations when you say it out loud. And that's why it's so important to be in your body. And that's why it's so important to put down your phone and get off the computer and just even check in with your physicality and really know how that feels. Because, it's sort of like when we speak our intuition out loud, it's like we get it out and we can feel it. We can, we are vibrational beings. Everything in the universe is vibration. So we can feel the vibration. And, the two things is, how sensitive do you allow yourself to be? We so numb ourselves out, and what happens is we numb ourselves to life, to our own intuition, and even to the goodness of everything. So really, of just even taking that step back, giving yourself a little bit more space, checking in with, how does this feel? Where do I feel this in my body? Is something that I say all the time, especially if I'm like in anxiety. I'm like, where is this living in my body? Let me just give this a little bit of space, and then it also moves.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So my next question has to do with, since we're talking about intuition and how it's embodied, how it's all about connecting to our body, just listening to how your body reacts to it. What are some more intuition tips that you could give people watching live right now on how to develop their intuition? For example, if you could give people your number 1 to 3 tips, that these are your top lessons that you've learned in your path so far about developing our intuition, what would this be?
You know that you're intuitive. Just know that you are intuitive. So often people decide that they're not intuitive, that this is something that everybody else has. You are an intuitive being. You pick up on things all the time. This is not something that is outside of yourself, and it's just a way to re-empower yourself. I would say that so much. And even with that, it's like, expect your intuition to work. Just that shift, that paradigm shift opens you up so much. And it's just a cleaning of a lens, really.
Right. I would say that this is, for me, it's being open and expecting. That we need to start to expect our intuition to work. That we have to make room in ourselves and in our lives to check in with our intuition, but not from this place of doubting it, you know what I mean, or doubting ourselves, but from really, I know I'm intuitive. And so often with our clients, we'll ask them to go through and make a list of all the times in their lives they knew something, whether or not they responded to it the way they wanted to or not. To just make a list of all the times you were intuitive, the time that you knew, I should really pick up a power bar on my way out of the house. And then you end up, in the car for 4 hours and you're starving. You think, I'm so glad I brought that power bar with me. That was your intuition at work. Whether or not you knew it in that moment, your intuition was at work. Or whether or not you met somebody and you thought, oh, I really love that person. That person's got great energy. That was your intuition at work. You knew and you sensed and you felt something without any experience of that person, that there was something for you there. So I think it's already starting to look at your history and really decide, what's this common thread of when I really was listening to my intuition? I knew that that cute guy at the bar was for me. Or I knew that I shouldn't be eating dairy. That's some intuition I ignore all the time. I'm like, I'm eating dairy even though I know I shouldn't. But my intuition says don't eat dairy, and I do anyway sometimes. But anyway, the point is, the first thing that we start with is knowing. The second thing that I think is so important is that we make a distinction between the head voice and the heart voice. And Sonia and I often do this, where we will give our head and our heart a voice at the same time by saying out loud, my head says, so right now I'm deciding where to go on my honeymoon, right? And my head says you should look at a bunch of places. My head says you should really, look and not decide too quickly. And my head says is you get the one chance at a honeymoon, so don't mess it up. And my head says, you know what I mean? Don't want to be. My head has a bunch of opinions about it. My head says Tanzania or maybe Zimbabwe. I don't know. My head, blah, blah. There's a lot. So I'll say it out loud. All the things that my head is saying about me, like just say it out loud. And I'll say it until we call it emptying the garbage. Until we've emptied the garbage completely. And then I'll go to my heart voice, and my heart says always, this is kind of funny. My heart always says calm down. That's the general thing my heart says to me a lot of times. Chill. And then my heart says Southeast Asia. So to go to Southeast Asia, I just have this feeling in my heart that that's the place that we should land. And so it's not about trying to get rid of the head voice or the ego voice. Sometimes we need to really honor that it has a lot of opinions, but then we can distinctively say out loud, my heart says, and you fill in the blanks, which just my head says, my heart says. That's a really simple little tool we use a lot in our lives.
And those are two tools, but also just to reinforce why these are such powerful tools. The first one of starting to notice all of the intuitive hits that we have and start to write them down and start to train our intellect to trust our intuition. Our intellect and our egos get really afraid and don't want us to trust our intuition just because they are trying to protect us. It's, they're trying to keep us safe. That's what they're doing. And they have a very limited window from which to look. It's almost like look through a peephole. So it's like, but when
don't want to make the wrong choice.
Right. But they only have this much information. But when we start to notice and write down, okay, like I did that power bar, or that person, what that guy at the bar was for me, or I felt this way, and whether or not we followed it or not, it's like our minds can start to go, oh, all right, maybe you're onto something. This intuition, I feel like maybe I can trust it a little bit more. And that allows us, because, sometimes people also get afraid to touch their intuition because they're like, in their minds, it feels like they're flinging themselves off a cliff. And it's like, you don't have to fling yourself off a cliff.
No.
You can
no cliff flinging.
Yeah.
I'm a very safety conscious person.
Yeah. And also, even with this head to head, my heart says, again, that's the power of your own voice. That's clearing that chimney, that's checking in with your body, that's listening to the vibration, that's anchoring in those places. My third tool that I love to tune into my intuition, and what I use with my clients all the time, is get in your body. Get in your body. And that
shake the ass.
Yeah, exactly. Shake it.
Exactly. Get in your butt.
Yeah, shake it.
Most people know that that's like at Hay House, that was what we were known for, which was our mom would make us go out on stage first. She'd be like, warm up the audience.
Sabrina, the first time I met you was on the stage dancing at the beginning of your mom's event.
Fully. It is like,
but it's like soul medicine. So Sonia's right on. Our intuition lives in our body. It doesn't live in our brain. So in order to really connect fully inwardly, which goes back to what we were saying before about the ego and the guru and the spirit, it's like we need to get in here. It's not out there anymore. We're shifting the paradigm from out to in.
Yeah, and what I love too about dancing and it's like, for me, I love dancing and I love the play and I love the fun, because that is spirit. That's the language of spirit. And when we can come from that place, when we get to be embodied, when we get to be present and get to come from that fun, joyful place, everything in us opens up.
Yeah.
It's like we become so available. Our minds get quiet. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, spiritual path, yes, sometimes spiritual awakenings are very difficult. Spirituality requires a lot of discipline, but also it's joy. It's being connected to that authentic, heartfelt place, and dancing and singing are like my favorite tool. Every single morning, I like play music every single morning. That's how I start. I mean, my mom and I, the other day, Sabrina sent us this disco song that we grew up with called Daddy Cool, which is like hilarious and so over the top.
Cool.
If you want like a very funny, ridiculous music video, I would recommend checking it out on YouTube because it's just so extra.
Definitely, I will.
But we just put on Daddy Cool and had like a 3-minute dance party. And it was like just like a dance break. And it was so great, and just woke up my spirit, brought me right back in after like sitting at the computer, and I was just like, oh, I felt so good.
Yeah, one of the things I love about you girls and about your mom as well is that at the start of every single event is put down your notes. You won't need them, you won't need your notepads, just stand up and just shake your butt and get in your body. So the common thread in what you're saying right now, in all the fabulous intuition hacks you've given us so far, I feel they all have to do with reminding ourselves that we are already intuitive and moving away from this old paradigm that there are gifted ones that hold the power of intuition, and just realizing that we're all intuitive at heart. Now, my next question has to do with taking it a step forward and really connecting to our spirit guides. So let's say somebody has really connected with their intuition, they learn how to trust it and how to separate between ego and intuition, and they want to deepen that by meeting their spirit guides and really having a conversation with them and allowing them to guide them throughout their life purpose. How would they go about meeting their spirit guides or their angels?
So there are so many ways to connect with your, first of all, just your whole constellation of guides. You know, the first thing that I would say, and what I tell my clients when they ask me to start working with their own spiritual guides, is I usually find that a lot of times our biggest block can be our heads. And that's where we can get so specific. You know, it's like, what guide is this? What angel is this? This is my intuition. Right. Instead of just start to even allow yourself your own availability. You know, one tool that we use is to name your guide. Right. What is your spirit guide's name? And you know, the thing is that sometimes my clients get really hung up on this because they'll be like, what's the name? Like, what is like forever? What is the name? And they'll get like really heady with it. They'll be like, it's like you know, like something that's like feels really spiritual. Like that's their guide's name. But you know, first of all, I think about it as like your guides, it's like our names, it's almost just like a little calling card. Your guides already know when you need them. They don't work in the same realm of needing to be paged like you would if I were to call Sabrina. But if we can start to feel that and let ourselves just pop out a name, it's like, and don't think about it and don't make it a forever name. Start to work with your guide's name of just like my spirit guide's name is fill in the blank, and go quickly. Don't let yourself marinate on it. And again, see how it feels.
Right. For me, my spirit guide's name is Poppy.
Mine is Painting. You know?
Yeah. And sometimes she's Rose.
Sometimes I'm Daisy. I mean, we got a whole,
you know, so I think that's so important to just, like Sonia said, go quickly, because the mind is the one that wants to slow you down. Your spirit is just connecting with a subtle energy or subtle frequency. The second thing that I think is really important when we start talking about guides or connecting with guides is that I see two things happen quite a bit with our clients, which is that they want the full-on disco light show from their guides, which is they want like Jesus Christ and Elvis on a float coming in with like, you know, and so what they end up doing is that's a thought. That's what we've decided is what our guides should be doing, where your guides may communicate with you in little signs and symbols and songs. Your guides may not communicate through your clairvoyant eye. They may communicate with you in other ways. And so we have to decide that what we think our guide, how we think what they're going to speak, what language they're going to speak, that they might speak a different language than that. And we've got to ask ourselves, am I open to speaking spirit guide? And for me, personally, I've had most of my spirit guided experiences are like, yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend. And we were talking about her father who had passed. And out of nowhere just came one little white feather floating down, just like out of the clear blue sky, one single white feather. And they just landed on the ground. And it was like, that was a guide. That was in that moment. That's how that subtle energy and frequency, whether we could say it was her father or her own higher self or an angel, it doesn't really matter. To me, it was just the affirmation and the guide in that moment of just the presence, and then acknowledging, right, there was spirit right there in that moment.
Yeah, and I feel like, our guides are here to support us. And they are so happy and thrilled. So first of all, ask for help. Ask your spirit guides to show up. That's another big thing. Ask your guides. You want to connect with your guides? Say, I want guides. I need you to come in and show me a sign. Show me a symbol. And then it's up to you to be open and notice. Pay attention for the feather that shows up, or the song on the radio that has just exactly the message that you need to hear, or the bumper sticker right in front of you, or the thing that a friend says. I mean, our guides communicate in so many different ways. And a lot of times what I find is that we want to connect with our guides, but it's like, we're like this, like, I don't have any guides. Where are they?
Right.
But we are not the ones who are open or even starting to look and notice. And the thing is like, your guides can have a certain signature, a certain way of showing up. And the thing is, it's like, as we start to pay attention, expect, notice, anchor that in, we can start to become more attuned to their subtle frequencies, their subtle signatures. But I always say in the beginning, just be open, because otherwise your head gets in there and then it makes it intellectual and not a spirited experience.
The one other thing that I think our mom really instilled in us too from a young age around guides was that they connect through the portal of our imagination. So that one way that we could really connect to our guides was to remember that our imagination was like a powerful place of connection. And people a lot of the time will have images, or like I had a client last week who she said, well, I really want to connect to my guides. And I said, well, my guides are saying that you're really connected to them already. And she said, well, that's true. And I said, well, who are you in contact with? She said, well, I've got my tiger who goes on walks with me. I've got my my light worker who does courses with me. She was like, I got my angel Frederick. She like started, and I was like, so why are you asking me about connecting to your guides if you've got a whole crew there that you're already in contact with? She was like, that is a good point. So I think that my point is that she already knew. Make it up. Our mom would always say that to us, because our imagination is really our connection to our spirit. So if you want to create a connection to your guide, you can ask yourself the question, if I had a guide, who would they be? And that just lets it be kind of playful and spontaneous. And it's like, if I had a guide today, who would they be? I feel like I would have like one of those lioness guides today.
You know what I love about that too, Sabrina, is when you say, if I had, it gets us out of our intellect and opens everything up. It's like, oh.
It disarms the ego.
Yeah, exactly. Like if, because we are so conditioned to live in the world of right and wrong. Yeah. And so a lot of times when we're connected with our intuition or our guides or anything, we get really afraid that we're going to do it wrong, that there's one single way to do it. And if we don't get it right, somehow we're going to be disconnected, that we're not going to get the result that we want. But that's not how this world works. That's not how spirit works. That's the intellect. That's the ego. So when we start to just allow ourselves, and I say this to my clients all the time, be a beginner. Right. Let yourself be a beginner and let this be play. There is no right and there is no wrong. Your only job is to notice how it resonates within you, and you will feel it. And and it can be a shift. It's like, because we're like, am I doing it right? And it's like, again, notice how that contracts. It's like, and then it's like, if I had a guide, and it's like, if I had a guide, his name would be Tony, and he would be really, really, really good looking.
I love it. Tony, the good looking guy.
That's so interesting what you said about imagination, because so many people doubt themselves and doubt their communication with their angels and their spirit guides, because they ask themselves, is this my imagination or is this my guides? Well, apparently it's the same kind of thing. Our guides and our angels communicate with us through our imagination. So what you're really saying is that by just disarming our ego and telling it that the imagination, the aspect of us that you think is actually not our guides, actually our guides, allows us to have a deeper connection. Is that it?
Yes.
Absolutely. And the thing is when we're connecting to the spirit world and our intuition, creativity and imagination are the things that connect us. Our intellect and our linear mind only goes from A to B. Again, that people analogy where we can only see that much. But when we connect to our intuition, when we connect to our guides, we need to have our imagination, because it allows us to make those connections that that our left brain wouldn't make. So that's why it is a muscle that needs to be worked. It's a muscle that needs to be built, and it's one that allows us to create. It's what allows us to manifest, tune into our intuition, come up with creative solutions that we allow. So it's not that we're making it up, it's that our imagination stretches the boundaries for us to receive guidance, receive more. Exactly.
I love this. Is so practical. Thank you so much. Before I move on to my final question, I want to ask everybody who's watching live, if you have any questions for Sonia and Sabrina, be sure to pop them in the comments so we can tackle them as well. Now, I've been watching your stories. I know you've just filmed a manifestation course. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the course is about? And then I want to hear your tips on how to manifest faster.
Oh, wonderful. Love this question. Sabrina and I are so excited. We are relaunching our website, everything. And we're going to coming out with 2 online courses, which we're so thrilled. Our You Are Amazing course, which is our companion course for our book, our first book. And then we're wrote and did this course, which is called Magnetic, which is a conscious co-creative force for manifesting. And basically what we are doing is we just created an online course in order to really help give really practical tools on how to become a masterful manifester.
So manifesting for us is a way of life. It's something that every day I see myself as a co-creator with the universe. That every part and every decision that I make, it's like I'm here to be in communication all the time. And so I think it started also getting, this course we decided to develop because we see a lot of our friends and our incredible clients struggling with getting behind their dreams. And really in our household growing up, manifesting was just something that came with being a human being. You know what I mean? It was like we all had the power to create, and our mom is an incredible creator. So we decided, you know what, we need to take these tools, we need to take this insight, we need to channel it and give everybody the same benefit that we had, this knowledge and power of that you can create an incredible life for yourself if you're really willing to get quiet and tune into the voice of your heart, which has the power, which is the magnet, is your divine connection to your power, in that it's your desire. So that was what the course was about. And it was so fun to film. We had so much fun. We had such a good time.
So silly. But, in terms of really being able to see yourself as a manifester, this comes back to that thing of being a creativity. We forget that we have power. We forget that even every single thing in our world we have manifested. And not a lot of times it wasn't that conscious. So now we're teaching you how to get conscious, how to direct your energy, how to use that
focus.
To be a magnet. And, in terms of, even just in terms of, one of my favorite and easiest tools of starting to manifest, it's get clear on what it is that you actually want.
Right. Decide. My mom always used to say, I can teach you all the steps, or I can teach you just to go to the end, which is know the outcome. She always used to say, just know the outcome. if you really embody and and you decide the outcome to something, that is the most powerful force of the universe. So I would say get really clear and decide. If you, let's say, we have a lot of clients who want to write books. If you dance on the outcome, you're probably not ever going to realize that dream. But if you decide, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to go out into the world, I'm going to share my message, you make a decision, the whole universe will start to conspire for your success. So I think the most powerful tool is, I could say, decide and really know the outcome.
Yeah, and also even getting clear on what it is that you want. So often we tune outside of ourselves. It's like, I want a house, or maybe you don't actually want a house. Maybe you want foundation, or it's like, or maybe I want to go on a big, massive adventure, but maybe really what you just need is adventure. I mean, the thing about starting to manifest and get clear is like, be really curious about, to go deep. What is the root of what it is that you want? Because if it's not something that you actually want, and it's a head thought and not a heart feeling,
nothing will move.
Nothing's gonna happen. Because you're not really, there's no fire there's no like gas in the car. There's no fire in the fireplace. Again, feeling, how does this make me feel in my body?
Right.
It's like, because when you want something, it's like, I'm going for it.
A question just came in that's very related to that. What if we don't know what the outcome is? What if we don't know what we want? How do we get about it? You just said like interviewing the emotion a little bit and just getting deeper. But what if someone is clueless and they are asking for a sign about what it is that they want? What would your advice be?
Well, I feel like, first of all, going back to the beginning of the interview, you know what you want.
Yeah.
You do. To give away your power and say, I really don't know. It might be that I'm not available for an answer. I'm not clear, but it's not that you don't know. And usually I think that's starting to get quiet. To start to be like an investigator, to start to be like a private eye in your own life, like your own Sherlock Holmes. And to get curious, because, a lot of times, even when we're in that space, what happens is that's criticism. It's like, I should know what I want. And I'm being critical that I'm in this place of where I don't know what it is that I want. And then all of a sudden it starts to create this tension within us. And it really even makes us start to doubt that we do know. So if we can start to move that to neutrality of like, okay, and then checking back in with our body. It's like, how am I feeling about this? What does my intuition say? Even going back to the head says, my heart says, my head says, I don't know, an adventure. It's like you can start to feel, and I feel like that's just one of my tools.
Yeah, I would say that was also the benefit of having Sonia Choquette as our spiritual teacher and our mother, was that we were never in this place of, I would say we weren't allowed to not know ourselves. We were really, that was really called into question. If we parked it in neutral, she would kind of call us out on it and would say, you do know for yourself. You just haven't given yourself the time or the space to get quiet enough to check in. So it was about holding ourselves accountable to really opening up to that. We did have a guru in us. We did have a spiritual teacher in us leading, but were we checking in, or were we parking it in, I don't know, sort of as a bit of paralysis of life is happening to me instead of that I am a co-creator with my life. So this was sort of a little bit of a tough pill to swallow sometimes growing up, because you'd like to be in that place of, well, my life is happening and I don't know what's happening. But it was about, okay, slowing down, getting honest, and creating space to answer the question and being patient. If it didn't come right away, do you just throw the baby out with the bathwater? Or do you go back again and check in again? Are you consistent? Do you have discipline in, are you being really available to yourself? Because that little voice of your heart and your spirit, it is there and it is powerful. And when you hear it and you hear what it wants, you will know. You will feel it.
And like one other thing, if you want to manifest, the thing is you have to become very responsible for your life and for your decisions. And a lot of times that can feel scary because we don't want to be responsible, because a lot of times what happens is we're afraid of the outcome. Or when what we're really afraid of is afraid of being disappointed. And so what we do is we just say, I don't know what it is. And it's because, but really disappointment is a mild emotion. It isn't actually like, and we can be massively disappointed, but usually, but also that is also a place where we have to trust outside of ourselves and know that the universe has a bigger, better plan. You know, there's so many times where I've wanted something and been like, oh, I want this. And then I'm so sure that that's what I want. And then I'm disappointed. And what happens is something else shows up that's
something
like
better than what I wanted.
Or that I could have even ever imagined. And I'm like,
thank God I didn't get what I want.
I know.
Yeah.
We can find this in relationships. People are like, I wanted to be with that person. And then later they're like, thank God I didn't wind up with that person.
Yeah, because sometimes it's easier to victimize ourselves and just tell the universe and people that all the answers we seek are outside of us. But it all comes down to finding this state of self-empowerment and realizing that I do know all the answers. I am connected to a power higher than myself that guides me step by step, moment by moment into what I want and what I want to create in the world. Thank you so much for all these practical tools we've given us. I've had a blast hearing you talk about intuition, about manifestation. You've given us some fabulous, some practical tools. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing this with us today. It's been wonderful sharing this space with you. Before we go, would you like to tell people what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and get into your world?
Yes, I would say definitely follow us on Instagram. We're always posting all sorts of tips and tools, and actually go to our website and sign up for our free ebook. We're about to relaunch our site, relaunch our courses. We're so excited for all of the things, and we love to give all of you guys all of the tools that we have in our toolbox.
Yes.
And let us know what it is that you're curious about. Just like this, we feel so honored to be here.
Thank you so much for having us on your great Instagram shows. It's just been amazing and so wonderful to connect with your sweet spirit and energy. You're just the best.
Yeah, and you can find us at soniaandsabrina.com.
That was the one.
Also, I love your flower crown.
Me too.
Yes. It looks so fabulous.
Thank you so much. It's my way of connecting with my inner child as well. Thank you so much, girls. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.